At noon the sun vanished and the world held its breath as darkness claimed the sky.
The sky turned black at noon. Not the black of storm clouds or eclipse, but a living, breathing darkness that swallowed the sun and bent the horizon. Birds fell silent. Oceans trembled. Mountains groaned like wounded beasts. Across the world every clock stopped at the same second. In the ancient desert of Kaza, where no map dared to linger, the sand began to spiral upward as if the earth itself was exhaling. Beneath the dunes a forgotten temple cracked open. Its pillars were carved with symbols older than language. At the center stood a throne made of obsidian and bone. And upon that throne she awakened. Nythera, the goddess of death, opened her eyes. They burned like twin dying stars. For 1,000 years she had slept imprisoned by the last alliance of humanity and the celestial guardians. Bound by chains forged from starlight and sealed by blood sacrifice, she had waited. Time had eroded the spell. Human greed had weakened the veil between realms. War had stained the planet. Every act of cruelty had chipped away at her prison. Now she rose. Her voice rolled across the desert like thunder. The age of mercy is over. Across the world people collapsed in terror without knowing why. In the capital city of Orion skyscrapers shuddered. In the forests of Elmere trees shed their leaves in a single breath. In the northern seas glacier cracked like fragile glass. Only a few understood what was happening. One of them was Orin Vale. Orin was a historian who had dedicated his life to myths that most scholars dismissed as fantasy. He had studied the scrolls of the First Age hidden in monastery vaults and decoded fragments of prophecy etched into cave walls. He had read of Nythera. He had read of the day she would rise again. He had never believed he would see it. When the sky darkened, Orin was in his small apartment surrounded by books and relics. The air grew cold. Shadows lengthened, unnaturally stretching like claws across the floor. His heart pounded. He ran to his desk and opened a wooden chest. Inside lay a crystal shard glowing faintly blue. It was said to be a fragment of the celestial seal, the only force that had ever bound Nythera. The shard flickered. "She is free," Orin whispered. Far away in the desert, Nythera stepped down from her throne. Each step turned sand to ash. Around her rose an army not of flesh but of memory. Spirits of the dead long forgotten by history clawed their way out of the earth. Soldiers from ancient wars. Kings without kingdoms. Children whose names were never spoken. They gathered behind her like a storm of souls. Humanity chose its fate, she declared. Now it will taste oblivion. In Orion panic spread. News screens flickered with images of black skies and earthquakes. Governments called for calm, but their voices shook. Scientists tried to explain the phenomenon, but their instruments failed. The first city fell before sunset. A fissure split the ground beneath the coastal metropolis of Valmir. From the chasm poured a tide of shadow. Buildings crumbled. Bridges twisted. Millions vanished in a wave of darkness that left no bodies behind. Only silence. Orin watched the footage with horror. He knew the pattern described in the prophecies. Nythera would not destroy the world with fire or plague. She would unmake it soul by soul, drawing life into her dominion until nothing remained but emptiness. But the prophecy also spoke of a counterforce. The Light-Bearer. A mortal who would carry the last spark of creation into the heart of death. Orin never believed he could be that person. He was not a warrior. He was not brave. He was simply the only one who remembered. The crystal shard in his hand pulsed brighter. As night fell, though there was no difference between night and day anymore, Orin felt a presence in his room. A whisper like wind through dry leaves. "You seek to defy me." He turned slowly. Nythera stood before him, though her body seemed woven from shadow and starlight. Her hair flowed like a river of smoke. Her eyes contained galaxies collapsing into dust. Orin fell to his knees. "You are death," he said. "Why rise now? Why end everything?" "Because everything ends," she replied. "I am the balance you tried to deny. Humanity chained me and called it salvation. But without death there is no renewal. You built empires of rot. You poisoned the soil and sky. You forgot reverence. Extinction is not punishment. It is correction." Her words carried no anger, only inevitability. Orin gripped the crystal shard. There must be another way. Life can change. Nythera studied him. In his fear she sensed something rare. Not defiance. Not arrogance. Hope. "Hope is the cruelest illusion," she said. She reached toward him. The room withered. Books decayed into dust. Walls cracked. The shard blazed with sudden light, forcing her hand back. Nythera's gaze sharpened. "You carry a fragment of the seal." "It is not a weapon," Orin said, struggling to stand. "It is a reminder. You were not always destruction. The oldest texts say you once guided souls gently. You were a guardian, not an executioner." For the first time uncertainty flickered in her eyes. "That name is lost." "Elyndra," Orin whispered, reading from memory. "You were Elyndra before fear twisted worship into chains." The air trembled. Across the world volcanoes erupted. Tidal waves crashed against continents. Humanity screamed under a sky without mercy. Within the small apartment, a battle older than civilization began. Memories surged around Nythera. Images of a time when mortals honored death as sacred transition, not terror. When she walked among villages, offering comfort to the dying. When her touch was peace, not annihilation. "I was betrayed," she said softly. "You were imprisoned," Orin replied. "And in that prison your sorrow turned to wrath." Outside, the window shadows coiled like serpents, swallowing streets below. "If I stop now," she said, "they will bind me again." "Not if they understand," Orin answered. "Not if they remember who you truly are." A roar echoed from the heavens. The army of souls waiting in the desert began marching across the continents. Wherever they passed, life faded. Orin realized words alone would not be enough. The prophecy demanded sacrifice. He lifted the shard, pressing it against his chest. The crystal melted into light, flowing into his veins. Pain surged through him, yet he did not cry out. "What are you doing?" Nythera demanded. "Becoming the light bearer." His body radiated brilliance, pushing back the shadows. Through the light, Nythera saw not a threat but a mirror. Creation and destruction bound together. "If extinction is correction," Orin said, "then let balance be restored, not erased. Guide us again. Do not end us." Nythera looked beyond him, sensing the billions of lives trembling on the brink. She felt their fear, their cruelty, their love, their music, their stories. Humanity was flawed, but within it burned sparks of beauty she once cherished. The army of souls paused, awaiting her command. "I am death," she said. "Without me life has no meaning." "Then be death," Orin replied. "But not apocalypse." Silence stretched across existence. In that silence, Nythera made a choice. She raised her hands, and the shadows halted. The fissures in the earth froze. Oceans stilled. The marching souls dissolved into gentle motes of light, drifting upward like fireflies. The sky remained dark, but no longer suffocating. "Extinction is inevitable," she declared, her voice echoing through every mind. "But not today. Not by my wrath. When your time comes, it will be natural, not stolen." Orin collapsed, exhausted. The light within him dimmed but did not vanish. Nythera approached him. The fury in her form softened. The obsidian edges of her presence became luminous. "You remind me of what I was," she said. "Will you stay?" he asked weakly. "I will walk unseen," she answered. "I will take only those whose hour has come." And I will wait. With a final glance, she dissolved into a cascade of silver ash that scattered into the wind. Across the planet, the black sky thinned. Sunlight pierced through like spears of gold. Survivors emerged from ruins, stunned to find themselves alive. The great fissure beneath Valmir sealed, leaving behind a scar but no further destruction. News anchors wept openly. Leaders declared miracles. Scientists searched for explanations and found none. Orin stood at the window watching dawn reclaim the horizon. Billions had been lost in those few hours, yet billions more remained. Humanity had been given a warning written in shadow. Weeks passed. The world mourned and rebuilt. Forests began to regrow in places once stripped bare. Nations signed fragile accords. People spoke of mortality with new humility. Orin returned to his research, but no longer as a detached scholar. He traveled, sharing the forgotten stories of Elyndra, the guardian of transition. Temples once dedicated to conquest were rededicated to remembrance. Death was honored, not feared. Sometimes at twilight he sensed her presence like a cool breeze across his skin. One evening as the sun dipped below the sea, Orin heard her voice again, carried on the wind. "You changed the course of oblivion," she said. "No," he replied softly. "You did." A figure formed beside him, translucent and serene. Nythera, no longer cloaked in wrath, but cloaked in inevitability. Not a monster, not a savior, but a force of nature. "Remember this," she told him. "Extinction is inevitable for all things. Stars burn out. Worlds crumble. Even gods fade. But meaning lies in the time before the end." She touched his forehead. Instead of decay, he felt calm acceptance. "When my hour comes," Orin asked, "will you be there? I will guide you as I was meant to." The ocean waves shimmered, reflecting a sky reborn. Years later, when Orin's hair had turned silver and his breath grew thin, he lay in a quiet room surrounded by those he had taught. The world outside was imperfect yet striving. Wars had lessened, though not vanished. Forests stood taller. Children learned the old stories. As his final moment approached, he felt no fear. Nythera appeared radiant and gentle. "Are you ready?" she asked. "Yes," he whispered. She extended her hand. Beyond the veil he glimpsed not emptiness but endless fields of starlight where souls moved like constellations. He understood then that death was not annihilation but passage. As he took her hand, the room filled with soft light. Those around him felt warmth, not despair. Far above the planet the stars burned steadily. The goddess of death had risen again, and the apocalypse had brushed the world with shadow. Extinction remained inevitable. But so did hope. And between them humanity continued to write its fragile, luminous story.